this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. This week's guitar lesson is all about rhythm and is designed to help you become a better rhythm player. At least to give you some ideas for some things that you might be able to do with fill licks and some strum patterns to help improve your rhythm playing. So we're going to take a look at this rock blues composition that's a standalone composition. So that means there's no jam track required. You can play this with whatever tempo you want. So if it's too fast for you, you can slow it down. It sounds a little bit more like a blues song. If you speed it up, it's got more of that rock blues kind of feel, but it's very versatile. It also works nice on an acoustic or electric guitar. So whatever guitar you've got, you can follow along. And we're going to break it all down note for note over the course of 2 videos. In this video, we'll take a look at the first half. If you'd like to watch the second half and download the tablature for this lesson, you're going to want to go to ActiveMelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP281. Alright, so let me just mention tone. I always get comments on tone, and I try not to go there just because there's so many variables with tone. I don't have a clue what everyone's setup is, and we're all going to get different sounds anyway. Even with the setups, even if we had the same setup, we'll still get different sounds because your fingers and everything are all factors in tone. But for those of you that are curious, I'm using a Kemper profiler, and I'm using a matchless amp in that profiler. Now don't go out and buy a Kemper profiler. You can dial this in with just about any guitar amp combination. All you need is a little overdrive on your amp, a little bit of reverb, and then the guitar I'm using for this is a Les Paul, and I chose this guitar because of the pickups. These humbucking pickups have a little more meat on the sound. It sounds a little grittier, and that's kind of more what I was going for. You could do this with a Stratocaster with a single coil pickup. You could dial something very close in, but that's what I was going for. And I'm on the bridge pickup with the treble and the volume all the way up, so it's as treble as you can get it. Okay, so this song is in the key of E, and it's a 1-4-5 chord progression. Your 1 chord is an E, your 4 chord is an A, and your 5 chord is a B. And it's just those 3 chords that we're playing off. Everything happens around 3 basic chords. And you know, it starts, the root of this thing is this rhythm that goes like this. And this is kind of like Guitar Rhythm 101. We're going to start with this rhythm because it's really carried throughout this entire thing. And you got to know this as a rhythm player because you'll use it in like a blues shuffle. You'll use it in rock and roll. You'll use it in country. It's the same premise. It's the same sort of power chord thing that we're doing down in the first position with the left hand. What's changing there in those different sounds is what I'm doing with the right hand. So let's start with the right hand, and I want you just to watch what I'm doing rhythmically with the right hand. Now you're going to notice, you're going to hear a difference in those. There's 1 2 1 2 1 2. You're going to hear one is aggressive and one is soft, or one is hard and one is soft. That's probably the easiest way to describe it. Hard, soft, hard, soft. And so it starts off with a hard strum, and what I'm doing there is I'm hitting strings 6, 5, and 4. I'm trying to. You don't have to be super accurate with this, but just try and get those, at least get those bottom 2 strings. And then the second one, or the one in between those, is the soft one, and that I'm just hitting the 6th string. So it's hard, soft, hard, soft. And I would start off, if you're not familiar with playing this type of rhythm, by just doing that. Mute the strings, don't worry about your left hand. Just try and get a rhythm. You become a drummer. It feels like you have a drumstick in your hand and you're playing a snare drum. So the other thing that I'll add to that, which I'll touch on more as we get into it, is I'm palm muting. So I'm taking this part of my hand, resting it on the strings so that I get this sound. It mutes the strings just a little bit. If I don't do that, it's just too much. It's too much sound. So you're controlling the sound by resting your hand on the strings. You just kind of play around with where you want your hand to be. Okay, so let's now switch gears and go over to the left hand. So with the left hand, we're gonna be playing an E power chord. And a power chord is just the root and the 5th out of the major scale of a chord. So for example, for E, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 1 and the 5. Just those 2 notes together, that's an E power chord. It sounds kind of empty, and that's because it's missing that 3rd interval. So we're going to play down here. We're going to play this lower octave, but that's an E power chord. Actually, most of these chords we're going to be playing, Actually, all of them are power chords. Okay, so to make that, you're just really playing strings 6, 5, and 4, and I'm just barring with my index finger on the 2nd fret. I'm barring strings 5 and 4. It's kind of like an E minor, I guess, but you're not defining that 3rd. You're just playing the bottom part. Okay, so once you make that, and you've got your right hand resting on the strings to palm mute, you're going to want to start to do this. Let me slow that down. Now what you'll notice is every time I'm hitting the open E string, or that 6th string, that's happening every time. But in between those I'm going, so I've got that bar there on the 2nd fret like I mentioned, but I'm also adding my pinky. Now some of you may want to use your ring finger for that, but it's on the 4th fret 5th string. So I'm going like this, alternating back and forth. And when I put it all together, it sounds like that. So you're going to want to play around with that. If that's awkward for you, just ignore everything else beyond the rest of this video and try and get that down. Even if you have to play it really slow, that's okay. But that's what you're trying to get. And that becomes really the spine of this whole thing. That's what we're going to keep going back to, that rhythm. We're going to keep falling on that rhythm. Okay, so the song starts with that. And then there's this little harmonized, that's a harmonized 3rd. And I got that from Tony Joe White. He passed away just last week. I just found that out. So if you didn't know that, Tony Joe White just died, which is really unfortunate. And so I've been listening to some of his stuff, and I thought, I'm going to work in a Tony Joe White thing, a lick. And so that's what this is. My little tribute to Tony. So let me show you how to play it, then I'll explain what it is so it'll make sense. But my ring finger is on the 4th fret 4th string. My index finger is on the 2nd fret 3rd string. So we're playing those middle 2 strings there, 4 and 3. And we just slide that up 2 frets. So you can use that now going forward as a rhythm player. Now you've got this. So now when you're playing at your blues jam and you're playing rhythm, you can play a little variation on it. Or you can go, you can walk it down. You can start to do things with that. So look at all these little extra things that we're adding on as new words that you're adding to your vocabulary. You can start using them when you communicate with other people. Okay, now what this is that's just the major scale for E, but it's harmonized. So if I look at the E chord, play an E chord down here, and I look at strings 4 and 3, let's just isolate those 2 strings. It's a shape that looks like this. We're going to call that shape 1. So shape 2 is the one that we just learned. And we're going to slide that up 2 frets. There's shape 2 again. So shape 1, shape 2. We're going to now go back to shape 1, shape 1, shape 2, shape 2, and back up to shape 1. And what I just played there was the E major scale, but it's harmonized, a harmonized 3rd. So you got, not the cleanest, but that's what it is. So now you've got all these other different positions that you can start to use when you're playing leads, when you're playing rhythm. But look at how it all connects back to that E chord. So then hopefully a light bulb goes off for some of you and you think, okay, wait, if that's the E chord, what if we were playing in the key of G? You look at those same 2 strings, that's your E chord right there, right? So you'd start it here. So now you can play the G, and you start to use those fill licks as well. All right, a sidetrack, but I think it's important. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning now. Okay, now after that, what I'm going to do is and by the way, in the tablature I have everything notated. I've also got the strum patterns for this first part, just because once you get this in the first part, it's going to carry out throughout the rest of it. But after we do that, so everything's downstrokes to this point. All with downstrokes of the right hand. And then after that, Then I'm going to come back to my power chord with my left hand, and I'm going to play the 4th string with an upstroke, the 6th string with a downstroke, and the 4th string again with another upstroke. So all together that goes like this. And then we're right back into it. So listen. Now that's pretty cool. Even if you learn nothing else in this little up, down, up is super useful in your rhythm playing. So even if we skip the Tony Joe White lick and we do the up, down, up, strings 4, 6, and 4, look what you can do now with your rhythm. You can play. See, there's a nice little variation, a little hiccup in there, but it adds a lot to your rhythm playing. Okay, we're making progress. And then it stops. 1, 2, 3, 4, stop. So all of that's really just the intro. And now we go into the main part, or the verse, I guess. And it starts with this. Kind of a single string thing. I wanted to create a simple melody. Now what's really cool about this is I'm playing between the 2nd fret and the 4th fret. And this is another takeaway when you're playing in the key of E. You can remember that on the 6th string and the 5th string and the 4th string, you have the 2nd fret and the 4th fret to play any of those notes, and they're all going to work if you're playing in the key of E. So you can play. You can start to work around different notes and just start to improvise. And those make for really good fill licks. So that's what I'm using for an intro. And if you wonder what that is, if you're wondering what that is, that's the major pentatonic scale, the bottom part of pattern 4 for the key of E. Okay, so it goes. So it starts on the 2nd fret, slides up to the 4th fret, 2nd fret, 4th fret on the 5th string, 2nd fret on the 4th string, and then we slide from the 4th fret all the way up to the 6th fret. Now this is getting out of that little box I was showing you, but the little box is just an example of an easy set of notes that you've got. Now once I slide up to that 6th fret, while that note is ringing out, I'm going to come down and hit the 6th string, the open 6th string, or that low E string. And that allows me, while that's ringing out, to take my hand off the fretboard and come back here and go back into the rhythm. See how cool that is? It's almost like it just keeps going. It sounds almost like there's 2 guitar players, because while one note is ringing out, you're going down and resetting the clock. And that's why so many songs are played in the key of E or in the key of A on the guitar, because you have these strings, open strings that are in key that can ring out and allow you to reposition your hand without breaking the rhythm. Alright, so backing up from the beginning, we have stop. We're back into it. And then look, there's the Tony Joe White lick. Okay, so after that's your first lick, then it's followed with the Tony Joe White lick. And then we go into another lick, goes. That's a Marty Stewart lick, I guess. That's what it sounds like to me. And to play that, we're still in that little box here between the 2nd fret and the 4th fret. I'm going to slide on the 5th string, 2nd fret to the 4th fret. Then there's the 2nd fret, 4th string. And then we go back to the 4th fret, 5th string and do a half bend and release. Come down to the 2nd fret on the 5th string. And then look at that, when I hit that, I went ahead and barred there. That should look familiar. We're already making that E chord. I'm already back into position to play the rest of that rhythm. So practice that. And then we go back to the same Tony Joe White lick. And that's the whole E part. So now the song moves on to the A part. Let me back up before we go into the A part and just play the E part one more time, play us up to that point, and then it's going to make sense that it's about to switch to A. All right, so from the beginning we have. We're going into the A parts. The same thing, same kind of feel, that harmonized third, but we're going to play it up here. Now, let me show you how to play this, and then I'll show you another little takeaway from this. But we're going to slide from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret on the 4th string, and then I'm going to bar the first 3 strings on the 2nd fret, but only play strings 2 and 3. So we have, and then watch this. This is my ring finger. Actually, my ring finger is on the 6th fret, 3rd string. Sorry, middle finger is on the 5th fret, 2nd string, and that's just picture your A major bar chord, strings 2 and 3. That's all that is. If that helps you to visualize that anymore, just hitting those 2 notes out of that chord. So remember when I showed you the E chord, we have the harmonized major scale that you can walk up from this chord shape. You have the same thing with the A chord shape. So now you can look at strings 2 and 3, and you've got this shape. There's the note we slid up to, right, out of that A chord. So you have shape 1 and shape 2. So you have, there's back to shape 1, shape 2, all the way back to shape 1. So what that means is now you can take this A chord shape and you can play these little harmonized third licks out of it. So if we were playing in C using the A chord shape, this is where caged kicks in. Now you've got, right? So you can start to use those licks in your playing, in your solos, in your rhythms. It allows you to do a lot of really cool stuff by knowing those, and just connect them back to the basic chord shapes. Now you've got one off the A shape and one off the E shape, and you can do just about anything with those. You could really start to make some cool music with that. Okay, so the way I played that, I stopped the strings, slid up to that harmonized third there, and then I go in to that same rhythm, but this time we're playing it over an A chord. It's the same thing, same power chord concept, but instead of us playing barring here the first 5 strings, now we're just barring the first 4 strings. So we're playing the open 5th string, 4th and 3rd. But it's the same thing that we were doing over the A. We've just slid it up, or I'm sorry, over the E. We've just moved it up a set of strings. And that's the next thing. So after you've got that rhythm going, I'm going to come up here and play. And that's 2 upstrokes, so I'm barring the first 4 strings on the 7th fret. So it's upstroke, muted down, upstroke, muted down, up, up. And then to play that, I'm going to bar the first 4 strings on the 5th fret, playing strings 5, 4, and 3. And I'm going to do a hammer onto the 6th fret 3rd string. So you have, and then after that, you go right back into position to play the rest of that rhythm, same way that we've been playing it. That's just a nice little variation. And you can do this really easily over an A chord. So just remember this if you're playing something in the key of A, which is a common key for blues. You've got this. So it allows you, because that 5th string is ringing out and you're playing these chords along with it, it allows you to break away from down here in this first position and start to do some stuff up here. So that's how I think of it. Okay, so from the A we have, and then I came down and went, get us back to the E. And that lick is really cool, really easy to do. It's using the same concept of staying between the 2nd fret and the 4th fret, but I'm adding this note, which would be the 3rd fret, and I'm using my middle finger, 3rd fret, 5th string, and doing a hammer on up to the 4th fret on the 5th string. So after that, then I come up here and play the 2nd fret, 4th string, and then 4, 2, 4 on the 5th string, and then I go ahead and bar the first 4 strings on the 2nd fret, do your upstroke on the 4th, downstroke on the 6th, and your upstroke again on the 4th, and that should look familiar. That's that same little rhythm part that we've been using over and over again. So we just practice that right there. That's an awesome lick. You can use that in anytime you're playing a rhythm. Just you've got that, your left hand stays in place, at least the bar does. It's real easy to play, easy to find, without having to even look at your neck. You can just feel it. Let's back up from the beginning and play up to that point. We've got the E, we've got the A, and now we're back to the E. So from the intro. Now we're back to the E. Tony Joe White again. Then watch this. Now we're going to the B chord. And this is a really cool transition to get you from the 1 chord to the 5 chord when you're playing an E. It's easy to do. So it starts with your ring finger on the 4th fret, 4th string, and we're going to slide up to the 6th fret. Index finger goes down on the 4th fret, 3rd string. That should look familiar. That's your Tony Joe White lick, right? So that's all I'm doing is I'm just playing that lick, but I'm breaking the notes out of it individually. Okay, down, up, and then you take your ring finger and you go back to the 4th fret, 4th string. So you have, and while that note's ringing out, I can now put my index finger down on the 2nd fret, 5th string to play that B chord. And look at that. Those 2 notes are a B power chord. It's the same thing as your A, right? You're just sliding it up. So you have, you're going between this fret and this fret, just like you have been on the E and the A. Same concept, but we're just now having to play it like this. Obviously we have to create what the nut was doing before. Now we're having to play that with our finger. So that's how I'm playing it. And then I'm going to play it again, and then go to the A, and then again, and down to the E. Isn't that cool? It's just repurposing that lick. And down to the E. Tony Joe White. There's another stop, and then we go into the whole second half. There's a whole new set of licks. It gets a little more bluesy in the second half, but I'm saving that for premium members, so that'll be in part 2. If you're not a premium member, you've got to check into it. It's incredibly affordable. New lessons every week like this, the entire back catalog. You have the part 2 video, you have the tablature, you have all the learning materials you need to help improve and make it easier for you. All right, let me back up and play through this one more time, and then I'll see you in part 2 for the rest of this.